Hi, I'm Ruth, and welcome to Inspired Questions, where I have meaningful conversations with women about life's ups and downs, or share on my own about what's on my mind. My guest today is Sarah Hepburn. Sarah is the founder of Turning Pages Studio, a boutique storytelling studio where she helps women turn a lifetime of wisdom into books, chapters, conversations, and legacy work. Her heart is in ghostwriting, being a trusted partner in shaping the full story of someone's life to honor their voice and their truth. She's also the author of the best-selling book Walking Forward and writes a Substack called A Midlife Moment. I know you're going to love this one. Hi, Sarah. Thank you so much for being here with me today.
Thank you for having me, Ruth. I'm super excited about our conversation.
Me too. We were talking for a while before we even started, and then I'm like, oh, wait, I really should hit record.
I know. I
So,
think you actually told me to hit pause on something I was saying and say
yeah.
it for the recording.
Yeah, we'll have to remember.
Definitely.
So Sarah and I know each other from the Monarch, like the Momentum group, the business group that I've mentioned on the podcast before, that we're in together. And I am so happy that I've gotten to go know Sarah more in depth in the work that she does. And why don't you tell my listeners a little bit about you?
Yeah, for sure. So thank you. Thank you, Ruth, for that. And um, I've had a bit of a varied journey to get to where I am today. I started out in the sort of marketing and uh, banking and operations world before really hitting that corporate level of burnout that some people
Mm-hmm.
experience, mostly after I had my third child. And after he was born, I went back to school and pursued an interior design certification and worked in that industry for a number of years and published my first book a few years ago called Walking Forward. And when I first set out to write the book, I was originally writing the book about habits at home and using that as a reflective piece and sharing tools based on all the work that I'd done with families in their homes and systems. And I really wanted to put that and share that with people. But the more I got into writing it, the more it became a almost a guidebook or memoir on how I've used habits throughout my life to navigate
Mm-hmm.
chaotic times. And that's really launching Walking Forward proved to be a real turning point in my work. And I started working with women on almost, I guess you could say, accountability coaching as far as implementing new habits and routines in their lives. I've run workshops, and more recently, am now shifting or have shifted, I guess, my focus and am helping women write their stories.
Uh,
And I do this in a few ways. It's through ghostwriting. It's have just finished a memoir for a lovely client, and so that's in the review stage now. So I help women write their stories. Some of them come to me for full ghostwriting support. Others already have something written and they're needing someone to hold them accountable, and they're needing someone to talk through their story and help shape it that way. And I also write a weekly-ish, we'll call it, newsletter called A Midlife Moment. And that's really where I share my own personal experience and um, the idea that I go first. I share my stories and help empower people to share theirs or write theirs too. Stories don't always need to be shared, but the
mhm.
power of writing them down is really powerful. And then I also do workshops and guided writing experiences. So it's really sort of it's a varied structure, but it's all centered around the idea of writing your story and um, the growth and empowerment that comes from that.
Mm. I have so many questions, like so many questions.
Yeah.
And thank you for sharing all of that. I First of all, if anyone listening does anything at the end of this, sign up for Sarah's Substack newsletter because it is beautiful. It is absolutely beautiful to read.
Thank you.
And especially if you are, I feel like, in that midlife time, 40, maybe up a bit, it also kind of resonates, I think, to a lot of the things that a lot of us are experiencing. So,
Yeah. Thank you for
so
that.
definitely, all of the links will be in the show notes. Um, so let's go back and I'm going to go back right to the beginning of what you were saying, and we're going to work our way forward into your story. Burnout is a huge piece of my work. I think it's such a similar experience for so many of us, and then it's very also individual. Like, what was that like for you?
Yeah, I don't know that I was it felt like a bit of a slow build. It was a really
Mm-hmm.
competitive environment that I worked in that I absolutely loved. I was working with super smart people. Like from an intellectual challenge, it was fabulous because I was
Uh-huh.
constantly challenged to put forward my best self every day. But when I went back to work after my first maternity leave, and my older boys are twins, I really struggled. The with between making daycare pickups, they ate a lot of. I was feeling like I was failing at home, and I started to fail at work. That's kind of how
Uh,
it felt. And I can remember. Uh, There'd be times when I'd have people on my team wanting to catch up with me or meet with me about this, that, and the other thing. And I'd say to them, I'm like, you guys got to walk me to my car or I'm going to be late for
yeah.
daycare pickup. So I'd literally be like in the elevator, down the elevator, walking to my car with somebody on my team talking to me. And then I'd be like, okay, yeah, we'll talk. Well, bam, off it goes. And then I had my third. And partway through that pregnancy, I had no idea
Uh,
how I was going to do it with three kids when I felt like I was drowning with two. Um, so I didn't go back at the end of uh, my maternity leave, and it's interesting because there's been a lot of reflection on that piece of it, and I worked in an environment that was open to having conversations about different roles and making changes. Not everybody That's not available to everybody. That happened to be the world that I was in,
mhm.
but I didn't ask for help. And I didn't feel confident. I felt like I had to shoulder the burden of everything myself.
Uh-huh.
And so that was really sort of my experience through that. And it's taken me, I think it's still lessons that I continue to learn today.
Uh-huh.
I have to actively remind myself, wait a second, I need help. Or wait a second, maybe I'm just tired and I need to go to bed. So it's like behaviors that are really so deeply ingrained.
Mhm.
Um, there's a lot of patterning there.
Hmm. How do you I think the first step is recognition. Like, you have your book about habits, and sort of those you were saying, like, it's sort of habits that it became something more like habits that you put into place. Like, what are some of those habits that you feel like helped you deal with some of the patterns that were coming up?
Yeah, the one of the ones is consistent routine,
Mm.
I would say. Like consistent time I go to bed, a consistent
Uh-huh.
time I wake up in the morning. I have a very uh, regular routine when I wake up in the morning. And it's interesting because it's almost like if I don't do it,
Mhm.
my whole day goes to crap before it's even started. Um, the One of the other things that is really helpful for me is I am never without my journal pages.
Uh,
I write first thing in the morning, but I also notice if I start to feel off, it's the first thing I reach for
huh.
as a place to park how I'm feeling.
Huh.
And sometimes just the act of getting it out of my body through my pen, or if I'm walking or driving, I'll often just leave myself a big long rambling audio note, and
Uh-huh.
that has the effect of um, almost pressing pause on the freight train of overwhelm that can happen.
Mm,
Yeah,
I love that.
those are a couple things, that really make a big difference, for me, and
Mhm.
movement, and I would say movement is probably the 3rd one.
Mm.
I've never not regretted going for a walk. Um, I might be wet or I might be cold, but I've never not regretted going for a walk, and that, that generally helps almost every time.
Mm. So, I mean, where did you draw the strength? Because I think to not go back to a job after, maternity leave takes a lot of strength to do. Like, where did you draw the strength to make that big decision?
It was a little bit of circumstance that helped
Mhm.
push me. We had moved further away from where my office was
Mm.
located, and this was before the time when remote work was the more normalized.
Mhm.
I know it's for some people it was normalized and now they're back in office. So it's I will say more normalized. Um, so there was the distance
Mhm.
factor that put into play.
Mhm.
But I think just deep down I just knew I couldn't do it.
Mhm.
Um, that was really what it came down to. So I don't know necessarily where I drew the strength as much as it was so much fear about what it would look
Mm.
like if I did go back.
Hmm.
I don't know if that makes sense.
It makes totally sense, and I love that because I think sometimes good decisions come from a place of fear. I think we talk so much about like the opposite. I
Mhm.
mean, I know I do, but sometimes like fear it plays a role, it has its place.
Yeah.
It's not always about the bad thing that we kind of make it out to be. So I
Yeah.
think that's what comes up when I hear what you were saying.
Yeah. It was, I didn't understand and why I couldn't handle it when I saw other
Mhm.
women doing it.
Mhm.
But of course, this comparison will knock you over every time, right? So I didn't know what support they had in place. I didn't know necessarily, and these were even friends of mine. I would look and I'd say, "How come she can do it?" Or "How come she can do it?" And I'm feeling like
Yeah.
my kids are eating microwave shepherd's pie for dinner. It's so gross. Um, but I'd wonder about that, and
Yeah.
um, that I'd spend a lot of time beating myself up because of that. But at the same time, as you say, fear it can be a powerful driver in a direction that you need to go.
Mm. And I would also say we don't talk about it. So they might have looked like they were coping and that they had I think we are all very good at putting on the outside that we have everything together, that we've got our shit together and everything's great.
Yeah.
And on the inside, you're like completely falling apart.
Mhm.
And I think that's a little bit of also why often as women, we're like, well, what's wrong with me? I'll look at all of them. They can handle it. Why can't I? And it's like, well, they're not handling it. They're just putting on a great front.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
And what support they have too, because it's different for everybody.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I think if I had a personal chef and someone who did all my I I'd be running the world.
Be right. Yeah. No, I hear you. A personal chef would be nice.
Oh, personal chef would be so nice.
Yeah.
Uh, so then, like interior design, because I feel like from corporate to something that's very much about. I mean, were you working in homes, or were you like it's very much of more personal, more like
I
something
kind of
about sort
felt
of
I would almost
visual.
yeah, I almost fell into it. I've always been a
Hmm.
visual person.
Hmm.
Um, I've always enjoyed design work. We did a big renovation to our house when we moved, and I absolutely loved every part of that process. And during that process, started working with uh, a friend who was a general contractor who needed some help for his residential clients.
Hmm.
And so I was able to really put in the reps and build my experience fast on a variety of projects with being in a supported environment working with him.
Hmm.
And then concurrently doing some schooling too to get that comfort in place as well.
Mm,
Um, I liked I've always been a real, you know, habits or systems or routine type of person. And
mhm,
I've always been a very, even in my design work, a real practical, starting with the function and how do you function and how are you going to be using your space and what does that look like? And then the form,
mm,
how it looks gets layered in on top of that.
mm,
But my perspective is if it's not working, if the space doesn't work, it can look all sorts of fabulous. But to my mind, it's a useless space.
hmm. Don't come into my house right
Oh, no.
This is all not working. I don't know that it looks fabulous either, but no, it looks like us, but
Yeah, and it's also personal, right? And that's, I
yeah.
think, what I really enjoyed is that everybody has different needs,
Mm,
um, depending on what they do, right? There's
yeah.
people, like yourself who have animals in the home. There's other people that have, a lot of house guests all the time, and they need to create
Mm,
space for what that looks like. There's other people that, have small children and need to figure out how to deal with all their stuff and their growing things and all the other people that come with that too. Um, so it's real to me. It's such a it was such a privilege to be invited into people's homes because you're
mm,
dealing with such personal
mhm.
spaces, and sometimes people's marriages, right? Like I'd be standing in between us spouses thinking, they're not on the same page at all. And, their house is now torn apart and they're arguing over a faucet or a wall color. And you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's a little bit of that kind of guidance that was involved that, for the most part, I enjoyed. Sometimes it would wear me down, but definitely I did like that a lot.
I love that. It's sort of finding the beauty, but finding the functionality as
Mhm.
well in it, and I mean, I think that's fantastic. I also think that when you do it, when you invite someone into your home, I find it interesting, like, even as a dog walker going into
Mhm.
people's homes, you know things about what is happening. Like, when you invite someone into your home, it's a very kind of vulnerable position to be in.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's interesting too because the number of people that be like, "Oh, I'm so sorry this is such a mess. Oh, I'm so sorry this is this. Oh, I can't believe this didn't work here."
Mhm.
And sometimes I'd be having conversations where uh, I'd originally been engaged to talk about paint colors, for example, and it turned into a bigger conversation about laundry and how they did laundry and, what things they could do to make
Mhm.
their lives a little bit easier, that way. So
Mhm.
but there's it all so many people apologize, and it's interesting because I can see now the patterns of how it all goes from,
Mhm.
working in the corporate world, and I did a lot of, uh, working in the operations world, so there's a lot of like processes and projects that are done and, understanding what the customer wants and really
Mhm.
respecting that structure. And then as it translated into the design world and understanding what the needs of the client were and
Mhm.
also the story that they were living as they, in their home. Like that's your homes are your sanctuary, right? It's
Mhm.
um, a place where you can escape from the world. It's a place where you can feel joyful and held. And um, I've always wanted homes to feel safe. Not everybody feels that way in their home, but certainly when I was working with clients, that was always something that I was important to me.
Mhm.
That they felt like their home was their sanctuary, and because it's as I move into thinking about helping people write their stories now, so many stories are written around kitchen tables, and so many stories are written, um, you know, reading bedtime stories, and so many stories are written in so many ways that center around that interaction with
Mhm.
the people who, your own, not only your own personal story, but with the people that you make those stories with about your life. Um, so
Mm.
on paper, it looks like I've kind of gone from one thing to another, but when I start to pull the threads together, um, there's a real, there's a real theme and, um, yeah, and pattern, I guess you could say.
Yeah. Well, I was just thinking as you were saying that, like, think about like if the homes could write their own stories of everything that's happened within their walls, and then it made me think of there's that movie. Oh gosh, I watched it like last year, even an older, not older movie. It's with Tom Hanks, and the whole movie is shot from one place in the house, looking out the front window. The entire movie, like the angle doesn't change until right at the end when you sort of get the pan. But and it goes through all these different eras of this like front room of the house
Hmm.
and what's happening. And it was really interesting. I don't know how I felt about the movie, but it was a really interesting idea because it is. It's like it does make sense what you're saying about sort of homes being the safe space, and they are kind of they hold our stories
Hmm.
within them. So it
Yeah.
makes then it definitely does lead to, your work with ghostwriting and helping people tell their stories.
Yeah. Yeah. And, yeah, so that's the space that I find myself in now.
Mhm.
It originally started with me writing and sharing my own story, and really realizing that I feel like, walking forward, yes, it had a lot of my story in it, but the more I've written, certainly through my Substack newsletter,
Mhm.
and it's continued to evolve and build. And it's almost like there's a muscle. So once you start thinking about different stories or different points in your life, it
Mhm.
gets a little bit easier to excavate it
Hmm.
and unpack it. Um, it's not always easy because some memories we just don't want to think about. Um, it could be a memory of a difficult time.
Mhm.
It could be a loved one um, that has since passed, or a loved one that we wish loved us in a different way.
Mhm.
Um, it's the so many components of our stories and what has led us to where we are today.
Mhm.
Um, but there's a lot of reasons why people would want to write their story, which I think is interesting because there's people that want to have an experience that they want to process,
Mhm.
and getting it out onto the page is one way to do so. And some people want to share that experience as a way to help others. So this is my experience, and as a way to pass it along and help others learn through what they've been through. Um, I've had conversations with other women who wanted to write about just a distinct chapter in their life where they might have had an illness that they've gone through and
Mhm.
were far enough away from it now to feel in a place of reflection about what that experience was like.
Mhm.
And then there's other people that want to write their story as a way to leave a legacy for those that they love. And I do find those are probably sort of the three reasons why people would want to write their story.
Mhm.
There's other reasons as well, but I would say those are like the ones that I hear most commonly.
So let's go to your story first in your book, because I
Yeah.
think, and your Substack, it kind of applies to everything. Like, I think it talk about letting people into your home as being vulnerable, but like putting your story down on paper in and itself, even if you're not sharing it, is a very vulnerable act
Mhm.
because it's kind of makes it sometimes real. Like when it's in your head, it's in your head. But I feel like when it's like in writing, there's sort of this realness to it. And then to take the next step beyond that and share it. How did you navigate sort of that vulnerability and sort of putting yourself out there like that?
It's a good question because you're absolutely right. It's a really vulnerable
Mhm.
it can be very vulnerable. Um, I, over the years, have built a bit of a muscle for it, and so um, it's not, it does get easier,
Mhm.
um, but a lot of it started even before I wrote my book. It started, when I was reflecting on, I what I wanted to or how I identified myself as a writer,
Mm.
and then had the realization that I wasn't actually writing with any level of consistency.
Hmm.
And for me, it just started as a quiet 6-week challenge where I said, I'm just going to write 500 words a day on any topic, but I'm not going to share them with anybody. It's purely
Mhm.
for me. And, in abstract, that felt very easy. It felt, okay, I can do that.
Yeah.
But when it got time to be practical about it and actually sit and put pen to paper, um, I was drawing a complete blank and I didn't know what to write about. And I was absolutely paralyzed.
Hmm.
And so I made a list and I said, okay, I'm going to write about what I know. And what I know best is my own life. And I kind of broke it into different, um, sections or different times, as a teenager, in my 20s, and started to recall stories from those time periods. And I would never intended to actually share it with anybody. It was purely something for myself. But then I wanted a place for it to live other than just a Word doc on my computer. So I just put it up on a blog online,
Mhm.
but I didn't tell anybody about it. It was it was very much, I'm just going to put this here, but I'm not going to tell anybody. But then I told one person, and she read it and she loved it. And so I told a few more people, but I still really wasn't telling anybody. But
Mhm.
what I realized is that I came to the conclusion after a few months of people reading what I had to say, that if if it made a difference for one person reading, if they felt seen in some way, if they felt understood in some way through my story, if it
Mhm.
helped them in any way,
Yeah.
then it was worth hitting publish.
Hmm.
And to this day, that is generally what guides me when I do share my stories.
Hmm. I think, well, that is also a powerful thing is the power to sort of help others and to find that connection and commonality amongst us. And I've definitely found that, like, again, I love your newsletter. Like, it's just, it's such a
Thank you.
beautiful thing to read. Um, were there fears around it? Because I know for myself, as I mean, we've talked about, as someone who's sort of dipping my toe into the writing something, I don't even know what it is still, but like, how do you navigate those like fears or around like judgment or criticism or I mean, do those things still come up for you or did they come up for you?
All the time, every
Okay.
time, all the time,
Okay.
every time. Yeah,
Whew, not just me.
totally. No, not just you at all. And it's interesting because the fear of judgment is a big
Mhm.
one. I feel that fear really deeply from
Mhm.
the people reading who know me outside of what I publish online, who might say, "Oh my God, Sarah, that's not you at all, or that's not how that happened." And I, I have, there have been times where I have either changed what I had originally written or just not published something because I was too worried about being
Mm,
judged. And I never feel good when I do that.
mhm,
I'm always kind of irritated with myself. But it's interesting. I also feel that fear of being judged by my writing peers
huh,
as who do you think you are to be a person who can write?
oh,
So I don't know. I don't think those fears will ever go away. And
mhm,
but I don't know that it's necessarily a bad thing to have them either, because I feel like it is some kind of almost like a check and balance
mhm,
of what I write. There's that level of accountability,
mhm,
perhaps. Maybe it's not to someone, but it might be to the idea that there are people reading, and it helps me think that through.
hmm. I mean, I think you're right. They probably won't go away. And I do think they can act as a check and balance. I think where they are not good is when they hold you back from
Mhm.
trying.
Yeah.
That's sort of when it veers into have the fear, but don't let it stop you.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting too, because oddly enough, I feel that fear, those fears less and less in my Substack newsletter space,
Hmm.
but they still hold me back in social media spaces, which is interesting.
Oh,
Yeah.
social
Right.
media, its own like
Its own beast.
it's
Um,
yes.
yeah, so that's, if I had to really speak to a spot where it's
Hmm.
the and perhaps I've just trained myself to be consistent. I've really built the writing muscle to um, write and publish regularly.
Hmm.
And I keep hearing those fears with social media pop up. So then I just stop and I go and I stop and I go. And I'm sure
Yeah.
anybody who's a social media manager or, our friend Amanda is the monarch is probably cringing if she hears this. So,
Yes, I think social media is its own beast because I think it sets this expectation that is unrealistic. I think it fuels comparison. It ex- it's kind of now even coming to a place where it's like be perfect, but also be authentic. And it's just, I think there's so many layers to it. Or at least that's what I built it up in my mind when I've been doing this business and using it more and all of that. And now I just kind of approach it as, now I'll do what I do. And if it resonates, great. If it doesn't, great. Like it's not, it's kind of, that's sort of how I do it.
yeah,
It's just,
that's
eh.
helpful. That's helpful because I think it's part of it too and it's one of the reasons why writing has always been an outlet and a sanctuary
Mhm,
for me. And, you know, being in the newsletter space by design, it's a little bit more of long form
mhm,
content. And so there's already a bit of an investment from people to sit down and either read or listen. I do record all my newsletters, so you can, if listening is your jam,
oh,
it's usually at the top of each newsletter.
mhm.
And I know some people have said to me, they're like, "That's perfect," because I'd prefer to listen. I was like, "Okay, great, here you go." Um, so yeah, I f- I think that for me is the biggest difference is that it's um, the people who are there because they want to be.
Yeah. Yeah, that is a difference. And I think also when you're very comfortable and used to long form communication, which I think I am as well, that's the other thing that social media is because it's like, be fast. People have no attention span. And so it's very difficult when you're comfortable in long form, and that's sort of where you feel like you can express yourself the best to then condense it down to a one line hook that's going to get everybody's attention. It's like,
Exactly.
what does that even mean?
What does that even mean? Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, So let's talk more. As an avid reader, like I love reading. So, and I've always loved writing. I just have never really thought that's not true. I always had this dream that at one point in my life I'll write a romance novel, and I don't even care if it gets published. I just want to write it from start to finish. And
Oh, I
I've
love that.
tried, yeah, I've tried like I've done little bits, but one day it'll be something. But, um, but I love everything about writing and reading and stories and sharing. So I want to go to the point we were talking about before we hit record because I don't want to miss that. And I think it applies even when you're reading a story of like the emotions that come up when you're reading a story, and for you working with people on their stories and having to, how did you, I'm trying to, do you remember how you said it? Like about absorbing their emotions and sort of taking that on yourself. And I think that applies to stories, but I think it could be relevant to people who are not writers or working with writers, but just those of us out there who do absorb other people's sort of emotions. Like, how do you work through that?
Yeah, and it's interesting. You know, I as I think about I read all the time. I generally have
Mm-hmm.
at least 3 books on the go
Mm-hmm.
in various stages, in various genres, and I'm, I just books have always been my, escape from the world,
Mm-hmm. Me too.
and I think it's interesting because one of the things and I've always almost so a very good book will get me immerse me in the character's experience.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that even takes on my mood. Like I can be
Mm-hmm.
reading a book and I'll be stressed or I'll be, anxious or I won't be able to sleep and I'll stay up till 3 in the morning and finish it. I haven't done that in a long time, but I used to pretty regularly be
Mm-hmm.
buried under my blankets trying to finish a book. And I think there's something about the power of that just
Mm-hmm.
and that's always happened, not always, often happened in people's stories for me.
Mm-hmm.
But what I look at when I'm working with people and taking on their holding space for their stories, and some of which are very difficult. And being a parent has helped me learn tools to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm getting better at it. But there's a certain level of yes, when I'm with somebody and I'm talking to them about their story and I'm writing their story, I'm very much in their embodying what their experience has been.
Mm-hmm.
But then I find probably the thing that has helped me the most is to create space, literal, like actual time space between when I wrap up that section, be it that writing
Mm-hmm.
section or that conversation, and I just walk for a little bit. It can
Mm-hmm.
be 20 to 30 minutes without talking to anybody, without listening to anything, but just literally walking to process, but also walking to reset. And that really helps uh, because it creates like a literal time and space
Mm-hmm.
between somebody else's story and recognizing that yes, I'm helping with that, but that's not my story.
Mm-hmm.
And that I would say has been the biggest differentiator for me.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Giving yourself sort of that time and space and distance, like literal distance if you're walking
Yeah.
away from it.
Yeah.
Kind of letting your, I used to do a similar when I worked, when I did child protection. I used to have this thing when I would drive home. I would just picture sort of everything from my day falling out of the back of the car as I drove away from it.
Yeah.
to try to sort of like that visual of like, okay, I'm like, this is gone and this is gone and this is gone. So by the time I got home, the car would be empty. I mean, some days were better than others, obviously,
Mhm.
but yeah, I think there is something to like, that.
Yeah, and
Shh.
it helps me with
Mhm.
sort of a bit of a check and balance too,
Mhm.
because it also helps me if I'm talking to you and I'm not feeling what you're saying, if I'm not
Yeah.
feeling tears come to my eyes at the same time as they come to yours, if I start to feel that almost that a detachment, if you will, then I know that something I'm not totally in the space with you.
Mm.
So it's really interesting because it's this tension point between being present in the moment with the person that you're talking to and that you're working with, but also being able to create the space to step back into your own world as well.
Mm.
And I've actually found that easier to do when I'm working with people. Um, and I've gotten better as a parent doing it as my kids have gotten older and being able to say, I'm here as your biggest cheerleader and I'm here to support you.
Mhm.
But it's your life and you need to make your own decisions,
Hmm.
um, which sometimes would be different than what I would make. That's a work in progress.
That's a really hard thing to sit with.
Yeah, I've gotten better and it's they're older, so it's
Mhm.
easier. It is definitely easier.
Mhm.
Um, but it's building that trust with myself and it's with trust that they know what to do.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think that's a I think one of the hardest things for a lot of us is letting go of what's not within our control. And I think that is like phenomenal that you're doing that with your kids because that is really what you're by trusting them to make the decisions that are right for them, you're letting go of that control. Not that I'm not saying like you're trying to control them, but it is. It's leaving it to the sort of and I think that is it is I talk about it so much in my work with clients. It's about that like is this within your control or is it not? And like how can you live with it if it's not? So, I mean, I think you should feel just so good that you're doing that work.
Yeah, and it's work. It's
Of
not there's
all of it is.
nothing no, but there's nothing, there's nothing. It's a work in progress, I think is what I was
Yeah,
trying to say.
yeah.
And I don't get it right every time. A million percent no. But I try.
But you'll never get it. You know, that's life though. It's never getting it right 100% of the time. Just you have to find a percentage that you feel okay with and
Yeah,
try to aim for that.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Um And can we are you okay if we talk? Because you were also saying before we started, and if you don't wanna go there, let me know, and I can also edit this out so no one knows that we didn't go there. Um, about, like, you're in this transition period of your kids
Yeah.
growing up and, like, can we talk a bit about that? Because 'Cause I'm sure also listeners can relate to being in that
Yeah.
phase of life.
Yeah, for sure. So I have 2 that have just graduated university, like, a month ago.
Okay, good. That's
And
big.
my youngest is about to graduate high school, and 2 of those kids are moving out to British Columbia later in the summer. And, yeah, it's a lot of change. It's a lot of, big emotions and
Mhm,
excitement and nerves and logistics. And I have found myself in the space of holding space for their emotions and how they're
mhm,
feeling. So if, when the older 2 moved home after university and how they were feeling after living with roommates and
Mhm.
now back at home, and what that's a big change for them to not have the level of independence or seeming independence that they used to. And, for my youngest son, what his decision of university would look like and where he wants to go and what he wants to study. And, there's the idea of helping that. And I kind of thought that I had my own feelings about the whole situation figured out. I really thought, I've known this time's coming for so long.
Yeah.
I know what to expect. Heck, I've already been through the whole graduating high school before, and I know what it's like. But I find myself in this weird stage of um, a lot bigger feelings than I thought I would have.
Mm.
And that has been really interesting to recognize.
How do you I mean, I think I'd love to know, how do you sit with those feelings, or how do you stay grounded through having all the big feelings?
I think one of them is trying to keep for me, just to stay healthy and energized.
Mhm.
So I don't, I still go to the gym,
Mhm.
you know, in the mornings, first thing in the morning. And I do it that way because if I don't go in the morning, then my day can get in the way of that piece of it. Um, I focusing on really just for me staying like physically fit really helps
Mhm.
me manage my emotional energy as well. And right now I'm actually really focusing on feeling or trying to be as present as possible in the moment
Mm.
and not worry too much about work and not worry about too much about this, that, and the other thing that I want to do in my life. But just be present knowing that this is a relatively short
Mhm.
time period. And I've really been asking myself the question lately of what do I want to look back and remember about this time? And do I want to remember that I was I felt very emotional and unregulated, and people felt like they had to tiptoe around how I
Mm.
was? Or do I want to be able to laugh at the chaos in the house right now? Do I want to be able to, you know, change my plans
Mhm.
and feel good about it and be okay with it?
Mhm.
And when I sort of like almost extrapolated, a few months and this time next year and asked myself that question, when I look back, what do I want to remember about this time?
Mm.
And that has been really helping me in the moment.
I love that question. That's I think that's a great way to look at it. It does keep you very present and sort of mindful in the moment, and I think that's often what we all need when you're going through a period of big emotions, is bringing it back to the moment.
Mhm.
I love that question. I'm gonna use that question right now in my big moments.
In your big moments, yeah,
In
yeah,
my big moments. Um, okay, so we're coming close to the end of the time, and I'm gonna totally hijack this conversation for some book talk
yeah.
before, because I wanna know, when we were talking earlier about books that bring on big emotions, is there one book that comes to mind that, like, really just moved you deeply?
Mm. Oh, that's a tricky one, Ruth. There's,
I know, I know. You can name more
oh,
than one.
I
It doesn't
always
have to just be one.
I don't know, I always have sort of, a bit of recency bias too when I read
Mhm. That's fair. That's fair.
when I read books. I think about books that I've come back to, over and over
Mhm.
again.
Mhm.
I think there's one book, The Alchemist. I don't know if you've
Mm,
read that one. Um,
I haven't. It's on my list, but I never seem to get to it. But now
yeah,
I should look it up.
it's that's a book that I often will read books and give them to people after I've read them. But that's one that I've kept handy
Mm,
and I do come back to. And for me, there's the emotion of it because of the journey that he goes on.
mm,
And, I think it takes a lot of courage to say, I'm following this path and this journey.
mhm,
Um, there's been other stories about, women. I'm trying to think of the titles even, but women's stories of women's journeys. And as they've gone, I read a book a number of years ago called The Red Tent.
mm,
Um, the author is escaping me right now, but that one really sat with me because of the story of sisterhood in it
mhm,
and supporting each other.
mm,
And to me, it felt so novel at the time reading it. I didn't, it just wasn't that type of, it just felt the idea of all women coming together and supporting each other like that felt really unique. Um, I think it's questions that evoke sort of big emotions and,
mhm.
um, yeah,
I
but,
love it.
yeah, I don't know. I'd have to think about that one a bit more.
I think there's something. What you do is incredible because I think there is something about the written word and sort of amplifying voices that is magical. And I think also doing it of everybody's unique experience. I think for so long it was kind of the same, not to say not the same stories, but I feel like we live in now a time where there's just so many stories that we have access to. And I think to learn so much about different experiences and perspectives and backgrounds and everything, it just it's it just makes me excited. Like it's just it's fantastic. So I think the fact that you are a part of that is incredible and
Mm,
important, really important work.
thank you. Yeah, it's interesting too because I really believe that everybody has a story that matters.
Mhm.
And I think, getting back to what we were chatting a little bit ago about comparison.
Yeah.
And I think so often we compare our story and our experience with somebody else's and conclude that, oh, well, they've had such a crazy story in life, or they've been through all this, or they've done
Mhm.
this. And I think what's important to remember is that it's the everyday it's the everyday stories that people
Yeah.
um, that make up the fabric of our lives. And that's what matters. It might be that, oh my gosh, I had tea with my mom every day after school. And that's a big deal because you might be like, that's how I connected with my mom too.
Yeah.
Or, we can see each other, see bits and pieces of ourselves.
Mhm.
And so I would never want somebody to say my story doesn't matter because it does. And everybody has a story worth writing about because we all have lives that matter. And that to me is the biggest thing.
Ugh, love that conversation with Sarah so much. The thing I keep coming back to is the question she asks herself when the big feelings show up. What do I want to look back and remember about this time? That one really stuck with me, and I'm starting to ask myself that. I would love to hear from you on what you liked about this episode. Was it Sarah's take on how fear can actually be the thing that pushes you toward the right decision? Or her reminder that every single one of us has a story worth writing? Let me know in the reviews on your favorite podcast platform. And while you're there, please like and subscribe to the show. Then you won't miss an episode. And it helps me get this out to more women who need to hear these conversations. If you want to reach out to Sarah, all her information is in the show notes. And if you want to connect with me, you can find me on Instagram, Facebook, Grounding with Ruth. My website, groundingwithruth.com, and some other ways are in the show notes too. Sarah's story is such a good reminder that you don't have to have lived some huge dramatic life for your story to matter. The everyday stuff, the tea with your mom after school, the walk you take to shake off someone else's heaviness, that's really the fabric of everything. And that is worth writing down too. Until next week, stay grounded.